What's good, everybody? It's your boy Instinct, and we're back at it again with another debunk. And today, I have a few guests with me. Introduce yourselves.
Hey, what up? I'm Carnifex.
What up? I'm personally Infinite Jackal King in YouTube, but I'm Discord totally not infinite.
I'm Phoenix Wright. I have my own channel, Phoenix Wright. You can check it out in the description below.
I'm Corn O'Keefe. Thanks for having me, Instinct.
I'm Friskate63.
And today, the debunk video today we're going to be doing is AnimationRewind's Reality Warper Free-for-All. And let's get rolling. But we're not going to listen to the pre-analysis in the file. We're just going to get straight into it. Post-analysis.
Yeah, we're going to be going over the downplay and a lot of the ridiculous claims in general, because this video is just a big mess. So I believe Phoenix and his brother want to start off by talking about Lord English and some Undertale.
Okay, I'll start off with Lord English. The biggest misconception they say is putting Lord English at fourth dimensional. The thing about this is Lord English, he's easily above the Genesis frogs and John Herbert. John Herbert easily destroyed the paradox space. Paradox space scales above to several different realms that transcend the Genesis frogs, which are platonic concepts. There's 13 million of them stated in the context. And John easily got killed and one-shotted by Lord English. And not to mention, there are trolls in the verse that scale to John and actually tanked attacks from him. And yet, even when Lord English was a baby, he casually stomped them. So even as a baby, he casually stomped to several layers in the outerversal beings. And even then, it wouldn't make sense why characters like Madoka are scaling above him in a way, because the highest Madoka would scale is at least 5D, scaling above her infinite multiverse.
Chris, you want to talk about some Undertale?
As for Undertale, for Azrael, he lowballed him by putting him only destroying one timeline. And he's actually more powerful than that. He's capable of the Undertale timeline. He did say that he's gonna bring everything to zero, and the Undertale timeline was calculated to have over 1,000 timelines within it, aka universes. That'll put it at a multiversal level, and it also has multiple statements to be classified as an infinite multiverse, putting the Undertale cast, the high tiers like Azrael at 5D.
All right. Instinct, you want to cover Goku next, and then I'll cover Beerus and start off from there?
Well, as for Goku, they did put him at low multiversal or multi-universal, but I think that's a fair placement. But if you want to talk about composite Goku, then yes, he does have reality warping feats. But Super Goku, I don't think he's really a reality warper in any sort of way. And plus, his speed should be infinite to inaccessible, since he was able to move in the world of void where time and space don't even exist, or linear time doesn't exist. So that's easily put him at inaccessible.
Wait, Instinct, do you want to quickly cover the misconception of Jiren being stated to be above time by Vados? That would count as immeasurable speed or so?
Well, that is a misconception, because it's not transcending linear time. It's still bound by linear time. So that should at least be inaccessible. You can argue immeasurable, but it's really inconsistent.
Also, he argued that Ultra Instinct gets you above time or something.
How is it because scale to being stronger than hit time skid?
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, that acts like resistance.
Yeah, and Hit's time skip is still bounded by linear time. It's not actually above it though, so
yeah. They're not above accessible. They're at least inaccessible. Like,
Yeah.
Alright, Corin, it's your turn to cover their mistakes on the Marvel characters.
Well, first is Beerus.
And Zeno. Yeah. So I'll get to that. Yeah, starting with Beerus, like in terms of overall power and where his Hakai should scale to, obviously he scales to Topo or a little bit above Topo, who with his Hakai was able to literally warp the entire World of Void, which is infinitely large. And we know, even while heavily suppressed, he was going to annihilate the entire Universe 7 macrocosm, which is a low multiversal structure. Now, this contains Hell, which is located in the afterlife. Now, Hell is a similar size to the planet Heaven. Planet Heaven is confirmed to be about as wide as the universe itself. Now, we also have, obviously, the living world, which is hermetically sealed off in the afterlife. And the living world contains, well, the universe, which has been confirmed on more than one occasion in the Daizenshu to be infinite, or the galaxies go on infinitely or be endless. So there's that. And then we also have the demon realm, which is a comparable size to the living world, or the universe, I should say. We have the Supreme Kai realm, which orbits outside of the Universe 7 macrocosm, and it's about 1/10 the size of the macrocosm. You know, and we have Beerus here going to annihilate that. And of course, he should easily have inaccessible speed. And to add on to the consistency of that, we've seen base Goku in the future Trunks Goku Black Saga move around in the erased timeline, which would classify as moving in a timeless void per se, which would be inaccessible speed, which would add on as they get more powerful, as the series goes on, as consistent. You even have, like, even if you don't go with that, you have infinite speed feats, right? Like, for example, Topo's energy blast crossing the infinitely large world of void within a finite time. And we have, like, Vegeta reacting to his attacks. Other gods would scale to this, etc., etc. Characters around that level. And you have, like, characters, if you want to argue this per se, I'd say it's more like a resistance. But, for example, if you want to argue this adds on to consistency, like Jiren moving in hits time cage, Goku being able to counter, like, hits time skip per se, you can maybe add that onto the consistency of infinite speed. But regardless, either way you look at it, there's ways to argue it, and there's consistency for both. Now, moving on to Zeno, obviously Zeno destroyed an entire timeline with 12 macrocosms, and as I went over, those are each low multiversal structures. He also encompassed this entire timeline within seconds, which, as I went over, these universes are infinite in size. So he also destroyed Infinite Zamasu in the process, who became one with time and space. Go ahead.
Basically, another thing I would like to mention for, like, Lord English in this case is that, like, Lord English, just for reference, Lord English pulled a Goku where, like, Goku was, like, in the movie for the Fusion Reborn movie, he easily, just by powering up, was able to shake the entire afterlife. Lord English did a similar feat, if not greater, as just by powering up, Lord English shook entire realms that contained platonic concepts, and just by powering up, he shook all of them.
Exactly. Did anyone want to cover the Touhou girl before we get to Marvel?
I can do that.
All right.
As for Yukari, she stated to manipulate the boundaries of the Touhou multiverse, which is stated to have brain theory, which is, like, connected, like, the same thing as string theory. And I got more proof of this in the description as well. Like, so basically, red and white symbolize the distinction between existence and nothingness. That's why the red and white boundary means joyous. By using red and white mutuality, this border is emphasized, and the blue line represents the beginning of all things. That's why the ancient people thought of it as a good omen. But there's more to it than that, to be honest.
So what about the other Touhou character?
Yeah, like, as for Marissa, she scales to like a suppressed Rimu, who's, like, easily universal plus a possibly low multi. So she's consistently there. And her speed's, like, infinite to possibly inaccessible. If you want more proof of this, click the links in the description for them.
Basically, she scales to Remu, who is able to move in a void filled with no time.
Yep. So with that out of the way, I'll jump on to the Marvel side of things. So starting off, I want to jump on the one above all. Now, he mentioned several times that how the one above all is apparently just Stan Lee, and I love Stan Lee. We all do. God rest his soul. However, that's not actually necessarily true, and that's never really stated. It's just Stan Lee. As we know, the one above all is consistently depicted and confirmed to be every writer, author, and editor of Marvel. And now get into the scale of things. The one above all created everything in Marvel Comics. And to start us off with that, we know within the multiverse, it's been consistently stated and depicted that there are an infinite amount of higher spatial dimensions. It's infinitely layered within the Marvel multiverse itself. And now we go even higher. We have stuff like the superflow. And as we know, it's literally stated the superflow is the highest level of existence, where it contains the true forms of concepts, where both dreams and imagination merge into one. We also have the neutral zone, which is even further beyond and above even the superflow. You even have like the far shore, which is described as non-existence and an empty void. Again, even beyond the superflow. And he's also the creator of the entities that both embody, or you could say encompass, all of these realms, such as multi-eternity, living tribunal, etc., etc. He would also be the creator of characters like Oblivion, because as we know, he created the House of Ideas. The House of Ideas contains every story within Marvel Comics, and Oblivion is part of that. And he would also be above someone like Molecule Man, who already transcends the 8th iteration of multi-eternity, who in turn encompasses these outerversal realms that I just went over. And there's been consistent outerversal realms throughout Marvel, even after retcons, pre-retcons, and these retcons would be because of the one above all, because of all, he is all editors, writers, etc., etc., combined in one. So this would also include realms like the Beyond realm, and pre-retcon and post-retcon. It would include the Beyonders, and yes. So right off the bat, the one above all is not only just Stan Lee, he's Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and every other writer, editor, and author that you can think of that's been in Marvel Comics throughout the years. He's all that combined. And he himself already transcends and views characters who transcend and view outerversal characters as fiction, such as characters like Oblivion, now current Molecule Man, etc., etc. So, with that out of the way, I'll move on over to Doctor Strange. Well, before I do, I would like to say this as well. Omnipresence, for one, is a state of being, technically, and essentially. It's not exactly a speed, for one. And for two, he would not be omnipresent outside of the Marvel, quote-unquote, omniverse, you could say, Marvel Comics. So in a neutral space, a middle ground, you'd have to, quantify speed, attempt to quantify. You still need to give a scale. For example, he would have something known as irrelevant speed, as he's beyond the concept of dimensionality, time, space, speed, the concept of death, all that as a whole, numerous times over, layers beyond it. So he would have something known as irrelevant speed. Speed would quite literally be irrelevant to someone like the one above all from Marvel Comics. So moving on to Doctor Strange, just a fallacious claim right off the bat. He's trying to compare essentially the time stone from the MCU with the comics time stone. Now this is very fallacious right off the bat for a couple of reasons. One, that's a separate continuity, and two, they don't even work the same, which also would fall in, again, it's a separate freaking continuity, dude. So that's very fallacious of you to do that. And two, it was unclear to an extent on which Doctor Strange. So I'll just name off some good scaling because obviously he was downplayed. He should have actually scaled above a lot of these characters. In fact, especially someone like Archie Sonic, who you yourself debunked being 11D in your own video, and we already all agree Archie Sonic's like 5D, sure, probably 6D, you could argue. Same with Archie Silver at their peaks. Now, Doctor Strange, especially Classic, you can even argue current, but especially Classic and other forms like Shambhala Doctor Strange, they completely destroy, Archie Sonic. Not to throw any shade, but again, it's very fallacious. Same with Dr. Fate. Now, for example, with Doctor Strange, and I'll get to Fate later, but first with Doctor Strange, even in Classic era, it's crazy. He had spells that could affect the pre-retcon Beyonder. He kept him in a drunken state of mind and had the power to actually trap him in a pocket dimension for all of eternity. And Beyonder himself even commented and said, wow, he's like the strongest in his multiverse. And we know pre-retcon Beyonder is inherently outer-versal, as he existed and did encompass the Beyond realm, which is beyond all space and time and the infinite dimensions that exist within the Marvel multiverse. He was also much larger than that. And now, yeah, this wasn't exactly, you could argue, wasn't necessarily his true form. However, that's still very impressive nonetheless. Even in this form he was in, he was still above the other abstracts. So, right off the bat, and then you have a time where Doctor Strange in the Classic era impressed Living Tribunal, which you actually mentioned in the video, but didn't actually go into how impressive this was when he broke out of his mystical bonds and impressed him. Living Tribunal, during this time in the comics, he transcended duality, time, space, the realms of eternity, infinity, who are all infinitely layered entities. All right? He was the judge of the Marvel multiverse, and you have Doctor Strange impressing him with his spells and his craftiness, and yet again getting complimented as one of the most powerful entities within his multiverse. Tribunal and Beyonder both told him that. And now we also have other stuff like him having spells that can transcend basic force. This is shown when he literally affected Galactus, you could even argue a well-fed Galactus in this comic, and he affected him. And I have spells that transcend mere force. So that's also impressive. You did not actually mention. You didn't mention how he can merge with an embody of eternity, which would make Doctor Strange himself in a state of omnipresence. And now the Infinity Gauntlet that you gave to Thanos, like only implying, since it only operates in its own reality, that it only has like universal time manipulation and spatial manipulation. That's very shady, dude, very fallacious, because especially when you consider the fact, first of all, there's a time when Thanos first put this thing on and he literally just flexed its power and it sent ripples throughout the entire multiverse, even up to the Beyond realm. So right off the bat, like if it's in its own, it has beyond universal range, buddy. And you did imply a more than one universe during this. And you also said it would be a tough time getting him out, but you did not go into just how tough that would be. So I'm about to do that right now. As we know, Thanos is one of the more experienced wielders of the Infinity Gauntlet. Now, what does this exactly mean? Well, for one, he would scale above somebody like Black Panther, who was able to go up against God Emperor Doom and actually make him exert more power than he did against characters like Phoenix Force. And we know, God Emperor Doom, this is the same God Emperor Doom who absorbed the entire race of the Beyonders, who just 3 of them one-shot Tribunal, the Living Tribunal, who I just went over previously. Now, other than that, the feat I just mentioned previously, where he literally on a realm and sent ripples up into it, both of these feats could easily be seen in the outerversal ranges. And this Thanos with Infinity Gauntlet would also scale above Strange, who I just went over, has outerversal hacks and certain showings in the comics that make him outerversal. And we know this because even Adam Warlock, who is not as experienced as Thanos with the Gauntlet, was able to eventually overpower Doctor Strange when Strange himself was using all of his artifacts combined. Yeah, there's that. And Thanos would scale off that as well. So yet again, 3 feats that you can easily argue and interpret as outerversal, and even if you want to lowball it, high hyperversal, Infinity Gauntlet consistently bare minimum. Now, you want to add on?
Oh yeah, it's also they didn't really need the Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like current Thanos by himself has a lot of great hacks, like God Quarry and beyond. After like Final Wars or Secret Wars, of those, yeah, and not to mention like how to do Thanos, and of course like regular Thanos. There's a lot of other picks for Thanos that could have been better, but you went over Thanos pretty well, I think.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
at least
good.
for what they were using. Like, I will say, good job bringing that up, because they could have definitely brought up like Heart of the Universe. That'd have been so much different, or like regular Thanos, who are verbatim, just blatantly, you know, in the outerversal ranges.
Yeah, and they don't have the limit of you can't use it in other universes, so get rid of that problem.
Also, like, I know I'm just gonna go back to Lord English for a sec. Like, Lord English casually was able to kill people like John Herbert. Why is John Herbert impressive, you may ask? John Herbert has a special immortality of type 8 where he can only be killed if he does an action that is unjust or doesn't classify as a hero. So if he tries to kill an innocent, then his death is unjust. And if he tries to save one, like, his death is just. But if he dies by a death that was not just or unjust, then he doesn't come back. But the thing about this is, Lord English bypassed that and killed him for good. And Lord English himself has the same immortality.
That's pretty interesting. Pretty cool.
Who's
You
gonna
want to go over Dr. Fate next? I think you went over all the Marvel characters, right?
Except for Speed, plus I was going to cover Galactus as well, and the Nullifier,
Oh yeah,
he had that.
Yeah, go for Galactus and Speed next, because Galactus got downplayed in Speed especially.
Yeah, and they definitely didn't even specify starting off, like, there's different stages of Galactus. For one, there's starving Galactus, who, even while starving, has still been able to overpower characters like base Thor when he's not using like the God Blast to threaten him, and he's been able to overpower base Silver Surfer even while starving, who both have Universal Plus level feats. Just a brief rundown: Thor has generated Big Bang levels of energy. Thor, he's broke out of a self-contained universe, a tesseract essentially, you know. And you also have them both being comparable to Hyperion, who survived the destruction of 2 entire universes. Hulk destroyed an entire universal space-time during his battle with the Nameless One. He held the power of 2 universes, etc., etc. You get the idea. Now, that being said, there's also an average Fed Galactus. Now, an average Fed Galactus was able to actually scale a little bit above Odin and actually beat him in a mind struggle as well. Now, not only around Multiversal Plus, Infinitely 4D, and this is because he was able to nullify a fire, Searcher's Fire specifically, which was going to annihilate the realms along with the World Tree itself. And now it has been consistently shown that there are an infinite amount of these realms on the World Tree, and each realm is its own complex, infinitely large universe, space-time continuum. So you have Odin doing this and beating Surtur, who had the power to do this at the time. You also have Odin tearing through the fabric of the entire Marvel multiverse, which is, you know, as we know, contains infinite timelines, which is yet again consistent and adds on even more Multiversal Plus feats. So yeah, an average Fed Galactus is easily multiversal, very high into it, in fact. And now is us to well-fed Galactus, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Lifebringer, since you kind of weirdly in there, which I'll get to that in a second. But well-fed Galactus, he has a very, very impressive feat when he's well-fed, and this is when he fought Scryer and the Other. Now, in this battle, they were actually heavily implied to be above what the Chaos King did when he wiped out 98% of the Marvel multiverse, which would include not only the timelines, but spatial dimensions as well. So this could actually be seen and easily argued as high hyperversal for a well-fed Galactus. And himself literally said this was greater in scale than what the Chaos. So now this brings us to Lifebringer real quick, because you said he was perceiving like infinite timelines and that was only like a fraction of his power, and you said like he could view all of eternity. That's literally Lifebringer, bro. And I'll have a scan of that. I'll send to my boy Instinct here. He'll see what he wants to do with that description or on the screen. But verbatim on panel, that's Lifebringer, like perceiving multi-eternity. And you said it's not that impressive because it's him just perceiving. Well, what you need to realize is to be even able to like perceive infinitely layered multiverse, if not greater in this situation, is not just like perceiving like beyond linear time or something, dude. Like this would require that level of power as well. And he obviously is considered to be a brother to multi-eternity in scale as well, in terms of power, title, etc., etc. Like, I don't understand. Now, I'm not going to talk much about Lifebringer. You only implied it a couple times. It seemed like you was mainly using normal Galactus. But again, he would easily very, very high into high hyperversal, if not outer versal, blatantly. MFTL, bro, like a lot of characters got that. It's pretty sad. I just want to say that's ridiculous. Especially you have characters like Silver Surfer literally time traveling at least 6, 7, 8 times bare minimum throughout the comics with his raw speed alone, which would mean his speed isn't bound by the flow, isn't restricted, you could say, by the flow of linear time, which would imply or heavily suggest he has immeasurable speed. And that's just Silver Surfer. Even base Thanos classic run easily like dominated this dude casually. Like he couldn't even blitz Thanos. It was honestly embarrassing for Surfer. And Surfer's just a drop of water to Galactus, who's an entire ocean. So he would be far into immeasurable, even while like an average fed Galactus is immeasurable. Like starving, he'd still be immeasurable because he's above base Surfer. So it's just kind of insane. You got Doctor Strange who can like move around outside of time and space, move through time and space, fought a clone of Silver Surfer who, and at the time he literally prevented his clone from blitzing him with his spells. He could react to him accordingly. So yeah, it's kind of fallacious to just go off that finite stuff, dude. Like there's a lot of immeasurable feats, and it's time to kind of move out of the past and get out of the caves. You know, we're not Neanderthals anymore, bro. Well, I respect you legitimately as a person. That's a fact. And like we're cool, but at the same, it's just like when it comes to your scaling, dude, these characters, none of them in this video got justice whatsoever, and it's sad that this had to happen, but it really had to happen big time. There's a lot of misinformation. So now with that out of the way, Carnifex, was there anything you want to say real quick about him before I say anything?
No, I don't have anything, Dr. Fate.
All right, well, yeah, real quick, Dr. Fate, he said he only like helped contain the universe, like pulling a, death battle on us, but only could shatter timelines and stuff. Now, I actually know the guy who wrote the script. It wasn't actually the show. I'm not going to mention any names, but the writer was responsible for this. I will admit that. Again, not going to mention his names. We're kind of cool, but whatever. It's on him, legit. So, anyways, Dr. Fate. And he blatantly copied Death Battle stuff. But anyways, yeah, Dr. Fate, he's definitely far above Universal. And you can easily get him to like high hyper, even outer versal ranges. I mean, heck, even if you just go off him like, holding his own against a Bound, for example, Bound Spectre has multiversal plus casually, if not like low complex multiversal feats, even while Bound. Like, for example, his battle with like an avatar of the Anti-Monitor who could annihilate infinite timelines, that one. And there's just so many more. And Dr. Fate is comparable to some of the Bound Spectres throughout the comics. And he's done a lot more than that. He himself has threatened infinite, and there's other lords and lords of chaos and order who have threatened infinite timelines throughout the DC multiverse and cosmology as a whole. Infinite timelines, infinite universe scale to this. So bare minimum, multiversal plus, even complex multiversal feats, and there's even higher stuff than that. If you want to argue, he was fighting an unbound Spectre, and there's even other characters he's been able to affect as well, like very powerful avatars, possibly true forms of Darkseid. Again, debatable, but even like Darkseid's avatars have multiversal plus, and again, even complex multiversal feats in their own right, just avatars. So now in terms of speed, Dr. Fate is easily immeasurable. Very, very high fact. Even Aquaman himself can swim in the secret sea, which transcends time and space. Dr. Fate is clearly faster than him, and in the post-crisis era, he proved himself to be far faster than even Superman at certain times. Now, this is the same Superman who tagged Professor Zoom and was even comparable to him in speed, which was stated in that same comic panel. I'm still covering the speed real quick. Yeah, which was stated in that comic panel after Superman literally tagged Zoom enough to run to the 25th century, literally run through multiple temporal dimensions, and freely run through the time stream. And we also have characters like Shazam and Superman both being able to react to reality blitzing missiles, which were blitzing space and time itself. Shazam moved so fast he traveled back to the Big Bang, etc., etc. So Dr. Fate is clearly above MFTO plus, and he's clearly above these very vague levels that were given to him, like arguably universal and heavily implied low multiversal. I would say it's only implied in the video, but he's clearly at least multiversal plus, infinitely 4D, if not far, far greater, and he's high into immeasurable. So, with that out of the way, anyone else want to add on to anything else?
Add on to like the whole the Lord English situation. I covered I covered the AP and like durability and stuff. Also, like for the speed for Lord English, it should easily be a high grade of like irrelevant speed. People like John and his friends were able to move in the furthest ring, which like transcends like the Genesis frogs, and like the Genesis frogs were legit platonic concepts themselves. And yet John and his friends were easily capable of like moving in this place and existence. And this is impressive because in the final battle against Lord English easily killed John and blitzed him and one-shot him. In fact, John was struggling during the final fight, and it led to his death. The Lord English was ultimately defeated by prep time, as the heroes couldn't really defeat him on their own. They had to use a mega special weapon designed to kill him.
Well, with that out of the way, I think all that's left was Steve and maybe some Archie Sonic.
Yeah, for Archie Sonic, I feel like AnimationRewind, this is the same thing he did for his MUI Goku. This is Ultrasonic fight, and he make Ultrasonic win because being 11-dimensional, which no, like Archie Sonic, even as classic, have fast of light to massively fast of light speed. In fact, in his super form, when him and Knuckles were classed, they literally destroy the zone. So imagine modern Sonic, which in the post-genocide, I think it's called, he's much stronger and faster than his classic self. At best, he's like 5-dimensional, like around the multiversal ranges. But both Sonic and Silver would never stand a chance against like the DC and Marvel characters. Like, no way.
You can argue like 6D Archie Sonic, but they still wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like to add on to the speed real quick, and to explain like what 5D is, like that would mean high multiversal plus in terms of attack potency. And now I would argue they are definitely above MFTO, but that is a good gauge for like a fair lowball MFTO plus like quadrillions of times. However, here's the thing, I would definitely say they're around immeasurable speed because they've been able to like do things like run through linear time, like time travel with their speed alone, fight characters like Enerjack who transcends lower dimensions like the third and fourth dimension. So he's like 5D, you know, so they would have immeasurable speed, I would definitely say.
Yeah, and with that, I don't know too much. I read some of the comic from the Silver the Archie. It's really hard to try to scale him, especially he doesn't have a super form or anything.
Yeah, so overall, we do definitely agree. Like, we're glad you debunked yourself on the 11D, you know, in this video.
Pretty funny.
We agree with, yeah, it is funny. And we do agree with 5D Archie. So with that out of the way, I think Steve would be next.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, they lowball Steve horribly as always. Like, Subsonic is god awful. Let's just go over his faster than that. The arrow thing is nothing. Steve can literally like dodge lightning if he tries. So Enderman, they could dodge arrows point blank, which is calculated to be massively hypersonic. So massively hypersonic for survival, Steve, let alone anything higher. Now their stealing for creative Steve was pretty weird. They're pretty vague. Like he could control his like data file or server. They called it an island once, and then they put him above universal being. So I guess they say he's somewhere universal, at least with hats or something. It was very vague, but I'll explain the cosmology of Minecraft real quick. In the lore of Minecraft, each world, like the overworld, the end, the nether, and the void, are all stated to be infinite in size. So infinite 3D. You can also set things to have like a infinite nethers or whatever to make truly infinite even in gameplay. But lore is all you need really. But yeah, they could go across at least creative Steve could go across the infinite size realm finite time, so that gives him infinite speed. And he could destroy these realms, so that makes infinite 3D. But there's a statement for like the Ender Dragon that, speaking its very name alone, can destroy the end or the world, like probably the overworld, one of those two or both. So he can be infinite 3D to like 40, because each of them are separated to the point where you have to take like dimensional portals to each one. So, and they have their own time because time flows differently in the Nether and the End. So they have their own like time, their own space-time continuums. So they're all fourth dimensional structures in their entirety, and Creative Steve can manipulate and destroy them. So that'll make them anywhere from infinite 3D to low multiversal. And he technically can go through the void, which is a true void of many times, so technically inaccessible speed. So yeah, like Creative Steve, he wouldn't be too crazy high. But if you're using strongest version of Steve, it would be Player Steve, where he encompasses all players, or as I call him, True Form Steve. True Form Steve is basically you get information about him in like the end poem, and he transcends like all the games, not just like one world, like the millions of games and worlds made by all the players in the world, and sees them as a dream. So he transcends fourth dimensional structures. That makes him 5D at least. You could argue higher, but 5D is enough. And being 5D inherently makes him immeasurable speed. So yeah, so he's definitely, he should be higher than he is there. There's high arguments, but 5D is pretty consistent for his peak. I think I went over him well.
Yeah, that was great. Now, Frisk, you want to finish up?
It ranges for Bo's power. It's there's evidence to show that he's like 11D, which is like the very high end of complex multiversal, and that would inherently also give him like a high degree of immeasurable speed. So they were like downplaying him pretty badly there, and they were saying he's too stupid, but it's a bit inconsistent because he actually does have some pretty good intelligent feats, but I can't go too in depth myself. I'll wait for the others. There's also the scan I was shown once that you could argue Budbo is 11,000D. That would make him hyper versatile, but yeah, he would still scale below like all the Marvel characters at their peaks, but they definitely lowball them. Oh, here's Frisk. You could explain Boat a little bit better.
Okay, for Cosmo, they really downgraded him. They say that he's not really impressive without Wanda, even though he has multiple feats to prove he's no pushover, like taking on Jorgen at times in the series. Also, he's more powerful than what they gave credit. He's capable of reality warping the universe on several occasions, and he even fixed the universes of Jimmy and Timmy when they were about to be destroyed by Shirley in the crossover, giving Cosmo Universal Plus to Low Multiversal. That would put him easily above the Genie, which AR apparently puts him above in the fight.
Yeah, and speaking of, the Genie, I'll be honest, the dude at best clocks in his best feats, around multi-solar system level. Like, for example, he didn't do too bad with the Genie, to be honest. And in terms of speed feats, MFTO plus billions, there's like 1 billion times the speed of light calc for him, and plus Jafar has one for like 1 trillion times the speed of light. So Genie wasn't really too bad in this video. I'll be honest about that. Other than that, anyone else?
Wait, can I say something about Goku real quick? Like his composite?
Oh yeah.
Well, anyways, I still respect Animation Rewind, but I don't know why they couldn't just use Xeno Goku instead of DBS Goku. Like, they use him a lot. Like, and Xeno Goku has shown more hacks than Canon Dragon Ball has ever did. And for like, he scales to 5D to possibly 6D depending on where you want to scale to crack a time to. And his speed should be immeasurable because, like, comparable to Toa, Mira, and Timebreaker Bardock, who moved in a place that exists out of history. And he's also superior to Demigod, who scales to these characters and transcended space-time in its entirety, reaching a higher dimension somewhat comparable to Meki Kabura, who moved in a space beyond time and was able to move in a void after Meki Kabura had absorbed time itself. So yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Well, I think we pretty much covered everything then.
Who's doing Bill Cipher?
Oh yeah, in terms of Bill Cipher, real quick. Now, definitely kind of weird his position, and same with Dementio. Like, that's very weird. Wow. In terms of Bill Cipher scaling consistently, he's literally a major threat consistently depicted to the infinitely large multiverse. What I mean by that is it contains infinite timelines, not like higher spatial dimensions. That's a consistent scale, and he's even shown this by One Shot and Time Baby as well, who governs time throughout the infinite multiverse and controls it to a good degree. So right off the bat, you easily have Bill being infinitely 4D casually, and he should have a pretty decent degree of immeasurable speed, at least baseline. I mean, he's been able to like time travel with his speed, stuff like that. You could even argue at bare minimum infinite speed, he's been able to move in like frozen time throughout like a frozen realm, stuff like that as well. Now, Dementio, you said yourself that this dude was like a threat to the entire Mario cosmology and like every universe and beyond, every dimension, etc., etc. And you only implied this to be like multi-universal, which is very fallacious. Like, for example, he was going to destroy the Dream Depot. The Dream Depot itself is considered to be an outerversal structure, as it's beyond concept of space and time and dimensionality. And there's even realms above that. So that's kind of fallacious to say it's only multi-universal. And the Mario cosmology as a whole contains infinite universes. Even if you wanted to say he's only destroying like the universes, that would still be multiversal plus, bare minimum, not just multi-universal. And there's even stuff older than that. You could argue, if you wanted to, like, oh, there's statements for the Mushroom Kingdom being beyond Plato's theory and stuff along those lines, and how Dementio would be far above that. Either way you look at it, he was downplayed in this video. He should have high-grade immeasurable speed, possibly greater, possibly irrelevant. So that out of the way, anyone else want to do an outro?
Anyways, that's it for our debunk. And like Corin said, Animation Rewind, you're a cool guy, but when it comes to scaling, like, you should do more research and actually be more credible than you are now. Corn, you got anything?
Yep, I agree. I agree. And overall, I'd say we covered every character very good. Definitely better research than what was in this video for sure. Hope y'all enjoy this. And till next time, peace.
Say
And make-
ya.
And make sure to subscribe to my channel, Corn's channel, Frisk's channel, Phoenix channel, and anybody else in this video. I will put the links in the description.
Until next time, outro-versal.
Introversal.
All right, memes aside, I hope everybody stays safe with this corona and peace.